poker gear to make it work. Robin won his World Championship without any Ultra Ball, which I'm pretty sure he was one of the only players in the tournament not playing Ultra Ball. It was such a staple card of the format. So both of these very creative and very solid players overall. You can see Robin, not just a world champion, also a Latin American international champion, and a ton of other accomplishments under his belt.
Yeah, there's a couple of trophies sitting around in his house for sure. If we have a quick reminder of the decks then, we can see that Henry is rocking that Ice Rider Calyrex V Max deck, but this time we got a lot of quick shooting Inteleon to do that extra damage, and like you say, Max Lance hits 250, bit of quick shooting against a 270 HP Mew to a Mew. That sounds like it could be kind of fun. So let's head on over to the game then and see if Robin's Dark Box can do a little bit better than it did in Winners Round 1.
Yeah, I think even if well, obviously one of these players has to lose, but we've both seen these guys having some pretty awkward hands. So really all I'm hoping to see is these decks in action and actually getting their strategies off. Now, Robin's is a bit of a more Exodia style deck where you're trying to get a lot of pieces all working at once in tandem, but when it does, it's truly poetry. And Henry's is a little bit easier to get rolling, but still can pose a lot of danger and threat in those opening turns.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him throughout the tournament so far already. Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, when you've got that turn 1 V with the energy into a turn 2 VMAX, it's a beautiful deck and it's very, very good. But if you miss just one of those parts, you know, you miss the energy turn 1, you need a Melanie. You miss the Pokemon, you don't even have the VMAX turn 2. It turns very, very awkward. So Robin here is playing his quick ball. He's got his Dedenne GX. Of course, like we said, there's one Professor's Research. That's the only draw card in his deck. So we're going to be seeing lots of Dedenne in the early game, hopefully into Silvally. And we've got red and blue to evolve up and get energy. And nice to see that that one draw card is in the deck.
And his hand is actually amazing. This start is great. He's already developed his type null, and he can go ahead and get a fresh 6 cards here. Still looking for turn attachment, and really all you want to do is end on either a tag call or a red and blue in hand, because that's when your deck starts to function in the first place. You really need to get those online with the Weavile moving things around and getting all your attackers rolling. And Robin is going to go ahead, not really any knowledge of what Henry's playing, I don't think, at this stage. So just committing to 2 Mewtwo's, he is going to throw a Darkrai into the discard pile. His hand still isn't great. He may be forced to use another Dedenne next turn. So I don't think we'll be seeing the Moltres come down, unfortunately, here. He may just settle for a turn attachment via the Viridian.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to have Viridian in hand. You got to think, oh no, chooses not to play Viridian and get the energy. So I suppose, you know, doesn't want his opponent to get the benefit of it. Maybe he's trying to play a little more casually, or a little more cautiously, I should say, before we start going. But, I mean, in a deck like this, you want to get energy on the board, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. I think, obviously, when you lock yourself into using that red and blue, you can always burst 3 energy straight out the gate. I think the reason to hold this is that he's afraid of Path of the Peak, right? As soon as he plays the Viridian, then he has no defense, and his quick ball is currently his only way to draw cards. So as painful as it is to not get that early game attachment, he doesn't know what Henry's playing just yet. So he basically has to play it safe, but Henry's hand, what a stinker. He just has this Mew to fight with. So just an attachment and a Psy power. He's going to Evo Incense and Inteleon out of his deck just to improve his top decks, but he's really hoping that Robin can't bring any attacker to the forefront here. And Robin actually picks up Tackle. That's going to be all we need to see a quick KO here.
And, you know, Mew is weak to Mewtwo and Mew. So we only need to do 30 damage here. So essentially, if Robin can get off any attack whatsoever, obviously we're going to get the Weavile here, and then that's going to get to Darkness Energy, which Weavile's ability can then move on to the Mewtwo and Mew and copy any real attack there. And unfortunately, that is going to be game 1 to Robin. Sorry to Henry, but sometimes you get an opening hand, which is frankly so bad, it is not going to work. So an attack comes down, it does 3 times as much damage as is needed, and we have a very quick game 1 win from Robin there.
All I asked for was for both these decks to function and work, so we can get to see how these players operate and how they tick, how they get advantages over one another, and how they get themselves out of tight situations. But not too much skill on show there, unfortunately. Mew not getting the job done. Robin did demonstrate what his deck is meant to be doing. Get that early Sneasel down, go into the red and blue, and suddenly you're bursting some very scary attacks out of nowhere. So maybe in this next game we can see how the Ice Rider deck can function and actually get into the game. Henry, come on, man.
Yeah, we have said that Ice Rider Calyrex, it has some awkward starts, and I think having a Mew and an Evolution Incense and no other basics, and having to actually attack with Mew as your only Pokemon on turn 1, I think that counts as an awkward start. So let's head on over into Game 2 and cross our fingers that Henry's deck can give us a bit of a game here, because unfortunately we're in the loser's bracket here. Henry is one game away from being the second world champion to be eliminated.
Yeah, and it looks like he's finally got a start. He's got himself some Sobble, he's got himself an Ice Rider, so we're actually going to see a game from Henry now, which is a huge relief. Hopefully, all things go to plan here, and he can actually start getting his strategy off. No attachment turn 1 is a little bit awkward, but you do have to go for that second Sobble here. He basically still needs a top deck, because typically what you're looking for is Capacious Bucket plus Quick Ball to actually use a Melanie here, so it's actually still a quite slow start for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, that Drizzle can get one of them next turn, but it cannot get them both. Robin, for his part, he's got the type null down. That's really, really good. We've got Dedenne in the active, not a particularly good start. We do have a Quick Ball here, and, you know, your draw cards, you've basically got red and blue, or your supporters, and you definitely, you don't want to play someone like a Dedenne here, because you've made this point a couple of times, Joe. What you really want on turn 1 is to end with a red and blue in hand ready for turn 2. So the last thing you want to do on turn 1 is play a Dedenne and discard 2 of them right off the back. That doesn't seem like the way to go. That's 2 of the 3 in his deck that would be out of action.
Yeah, based on his hand, he may be forced to red and blue to go for the Silvally GX rather than the usual Weavile out the gate, start moving them all around and getting your attacks off. Because I think once he discards his hand down via that red and blue, he'll need to, reestablish his hand and get more going for him. So the alternate path is to Quick Ball for Dedenne now and try and get it all next turn by also finding the Sneasel here. He, of course, checked through his deck, saw that he did still have his third red and blue available, I believe. So we'll see what he does here. Still a pretty awkward hand. He can tag call out a Mewtwo at least and get an attachment into play. And yeah, there is the red and blue there. He has a second tag call for next turn, so you don't necessarily have to reveal it straight away. You can go for the Guzma here if you really want to.
Absolutely, and having the free copies of tag call in his deck is why Ron was able to play the Dedenne. Still makes me super nervous on a deck that really is built around red and blue to have 2 of the 3 hitting your discard on the first turn. But we saw how bad his hand was. I don't think he wanted to discard those 2 red and blue, but sometimes you got to just look at your hand and be like, this is not working for me. Good news, like you say, you've got tag call there. There is the red and blue ready for next turn. It's going to be a bit of a slower start here. It's not going to be a turn 1 victory, unfortunately, but it's not a terrible position.
Yeah, this is great, I think. He can Guzma for the capture energy and establish that to actually end on the Sneasel as well. So
yeah,
he's done really well off the Dedenne in the end with the double tag call, giving himself some nice fodder for the discards with the Guzma. So yeah, in the end, that Dedenne change was a well-calculated risk from Robin, and he's ended up with a really solid end-of-turn board here.
He's got both the basics he wants. He's got the type null. He's got the Sneasel. He's got an energy down on Mewtwo. And Mew, like you say, that Dedenne made me super nervous. I'm sorry, it just did. But it really paid off. And I think sometimes if you win game 1 of a best of 3 series, that kind of empowers you a little bit to go, you know what, if this is a disaster scenario, there's always game 3.
And Robin's deck is so specific, it feels like he knows better than anyone else that missing beats just means that even with your convoluted combo, you're not going to get the job done. You really have to put the pressure on, get the ideal hands, and just overwhelm the opponent with some of the crazy GX attacks and other options that he has within his deck. So taking the risk to really go all out and have an incredible start is really what he needed here.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And, it worked perfectly. And We've looked at Robin's deck list, right? And that is a weird deck list. It does not look like a regular deck list. We've already pointed out some of the things about it which are frankly weird. But the fact of the matter is, when you're as good at the game as Robin is, the important thing is he made the deck list. So yes, it's weird, but Robin knows every card in there and why it's there and can make those decisions so well. It's a very hard deck to watch and try and predict because it's such a weird deck. It's just not what you're used to, and it must be awkward for players like Henry playing against it, just going, what is he doing? Why is he doing this?
Well, the good news for Henry is that he actually picked up the Evolution Incense for turn. So he was able to construct the way to get the Melanie off here and actually launch an attack and begin to start that prize race if he wants to. So he will go ahead, attach that for turn, go ahead and go into his Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. He also is able to establish the regular 2-prizer on the bench for a bit of a backup attacker, because Robin can burst out some scary attacks. It is something that you have to bear in mind when there's turn attachment, there's Dire Flame Wings as well, there's more red and blues potentially around. You have to respect it. And Henry could even opt to go for Rider the High King here, knowing that he could take advantage of the damage counters later on. I don't mind this at all. It means that you're not locked into Melanie the following turn, and you can make those counters work for you later on once you establish those Inteleon.
No, I like that a lot. I think it's a really nice play. 2 Inteleon abilities will get a KO on that Dedenne. I mean, firstly, like you say, it's not locking you into Melanie, but I love mid-turn prizes. Taking prizes in the middle of your turn and then being able to use them immediately to start getting your board established, attackers built up, etc. So I really like that. Plus, you know, just little things like you're not giving Robin an extra bench space that you otherwise would be. So now Robin's got 1 bench space to work with rather than 2, which can at times, you know, make a bit of a difference. So as weird as it looked to not take the KO when he could have done, I like it. And we know, you know, Robin is not going to be playing something in this deck that is going to heal that Dedenne.
Well, he does play the Malolanas. There was actually one in hand, but he is forced into red and blue at this stage. And he's actually hoping that the Sylvali choice then allows him to disc reload into the Weavile. Let's see if he can. He does still have, well, there's the communication. So now he has the option to use any attacker that he likes. Otherwise, he would have been locked into his Greninja Zoroark, which he may still end up doing. It only commits 2 energy to your active. So even if Henry is able to commit towards finding a quick shooting Inteleon, Robin's not giving up too many energy all in one go.
No, that's a good point. Okay, I'll say I was wrong about the Mallow and Lana, but I never expect anyone to Mallow and Lana to heal a Dedenne. Plus,
Yeah,
like
it's
you say,
unconventional.
it's very unconventional. Plus, to be fair, did have to use the red and blue, so Mallow and Lana, there was no chance of that coming down this turn. But
Absolutely.
I'm liking Robin's setup. This is a second game in a row where Robin's deck has worked, where we've seen the Weavile, we've seen the energy, we've seen the red and blue coming down. And I'm liking this, and I'm liking Robin's deck. I love the amount of options that are available here. I like being able to move energy around the field, protect your energy from KOs, being able to choose from a number of different attacks using Mewtwo and Mew. Have to be super careful about stuff like Path to the Peak, but outside of that, what more does Robin really need apart from, you know, maybe an energy drop every turn?
Yeah, I think that's the only sort of hardship for Robin right now. He doesn't have the Galarian Moltres developed, and that's really what helps you push towards the big scary GX attacks. And I think Robin is going to need one of those if he is going to overcome the Ice Rider. You need to get a huge knockout out of nowhere, and that typically comes through the Dark Moon GX attack, which isn't an option right now. He is going to go ahead and commit the 3rd energy to the active, which also comes with its own risks here. He's doing 150 damage, trying to put himself in range, but it's quite easy for Henry to find 1 quick shooting Inteleon and actually take a 3-prize KO this turn.
Absolutely, and that's going to be the priority. And there is that quick shooting Inteleon. Drew it just off of that professor's research. So dropping those 2 damage counters, like we said, the maths works perfectly. Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, the maths does not work brilliantly against VMAXs, but the magic number for tag teams is usually 270, and it works perfectly for that.
Yeah, it's really the combination of Ice Rider and Shadow Rider Calyrex, both of these new cards from the Chilling Reign set, but these have been the cards that have actually finally started to push tag teams out of the metagame. Pikachu and Zekrom are seeing a lot less play. It's only really ADP variants that are seeing a huge amount of success, and Robin with the wild card pick here with the Dark Toolbox, but just the damage that both of these Calyrex cards can put out really has put a dent into these tag team Pokemon in general. And you can see exactly why just then. 2 energy to take a 3-prize KO is just a ridiculous sort of efficient option that Henry was able to come out with here.
Absolutely. And you have got to think Henry is in the driver's seat here. If he's able to get another Inteleon out next turn, He's going to be able to get a KO on that Dedenne mid-turn, take those 2 prizes, and then it's literally just 1 prize for the victory. Bearing in mind, there is another Dedenne on the board, which is pretty easy to KO for those, well, that last prize or 2. So Robin is not out of this yet. He's got Mew to a Mew. There are some funky GX attacks that can be used to buy turns and do all kinds of fun things, but there's not much energy on the board. There isn't a Galarian Moltres getting extra energy, and Robin is as good as down to 1 prize remaining, really, at this stage. Time those Inteleon hit the board.
Yeah, and Robin's got a bit of a debate on his hands here. He may be forced into a early Dark Moon GX for not the full effect, just because his board's not really established. And instead, he's going to say, that's game. Let's go to the 3rd one, where I think I have better options in that game 3, starting afresh.
That was a surprise concession if ever I've seen one. We're like, he's still got a few options. And Robin's like, no, I really don't. Let's go to game 3.
He was behind, let's be fair.
Absolutely, it was not a good position. And like we say, with that Dedenne about to be KO'd as soon as a second Inteleon came off the board, and that Ice Rider Calyrex V-Match doing that much damage, Henry had that game sewn up. Robin realised that. But remember, if you win game 1 of a best of 3, it means that if there is a game 3, you get to choose whether to go first or second. That is always a big decision. So let's head on over into game 3 and see if Robin can use that to his advantage and take this victory.
And yeah, really, we haven't seen much from Robin in terms of these big GX attacks. The real payoffs of his deck hasn't really come to fruition just yet. So maybe in this game 3, we'll actually start to see the Dark Moon GX doing what it does best and really harming the opponent's options by taking a huge KO whilst also stopping the opponent having much response in the way of trainer cards. And Robin's hand is pretty solid. He's got himself a communication, can go ahead and grab Dedenne here, and he can throw away a bunch of his energies to actually get his Galarian Moltres V online, which is something he hasn't been able to achieve in the first 2 games here.
Absolutely, that one's going to be pretty big, getting that energy up. Of course, it's also very important because in the pre-show yesterday when we were picking a winner, you chose Henry, I chose Robin. One of us is about to be the first one of the casters to be proven wrong, and I don't want to be rude, Joe, but I'm kind of hoping that it ends up being you because I don't want to be that wrong on our predictions that early. But also, I want to see Robin's deck doing what Robin's deck does. I want to see those giant GX attacks with all of those extra effects. They just take a lot of energy to get rolling.
Speaking of energy, Robin has a ton right now. He can throw a couple into that discard pile. Always helps the deck when you have that Moltres in the back, but even more energy being drawn. That is far too many. He doesn't actually play that many. He only plays 11, but he's drawn runner energy there. That is pretty heartbreaking to see.
And sometimes we refer to a player as having a hand of energy when we really mean they've got kind of 2 or 3 and they've got plenty. Robin has an actual hand of energy here. Darkness, 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 darkness. And I think it's a capture energy at the end there. This is not what Robin's looking for. And it really is top deck mode here. Robin's board at this stage is not well established enough to deal with this hand. There's no draw power on the board. There's no attacker on the board. There's Galarian Moltres, but that is, I suppose, maybe ready to go with a switching card, but it is not a good enough board for that hand.
Yeah, Henry just firing off that Evo Incense before using the research. He wants to make sure that he has license to discard one of his Ice Rider Calyrex, because he only plays 3 copies, and discarding one means you're, potentially worried about prizing situations, but making sure that he safeguards around that before getting himself a fresh hand here. He has his turn 1 attachment. He can go ahead and grab a second Sobble here with Quick Ball. I think that's likely what we're going to be seeing here. I think oftentimes you can throw away the Shady Dealings in Inteleon. It's the way that Zach's built completely around his list, but it's less so the case for Henry. It does a lot less of the heavy lifting. Instead, throws a Water away. That's always a good option also, because we know that Melanie is on the table for him now, even if he does get hit with a Marnie or anything like that. So he can quite comfortably pass things over to Robin here. I feel like you can't use the level ball unless you're really looking for a top deck, and you basically tell your opponent that you're forcing a Drizzile out. But what a huge top deck from Robin!
I was going to say, speaking of a top deck, that is working very nicely indeed. That is going to go and get the Silvally and a couple of extra energy. And if Robin can find his way to a Weavile this turn, that is going to be huge. Obviously, I mean, Silvally's not a terrible attacker. It's not really what you're looking for, but it's serviceable. But really what you want to do is get the energy onto Silvally so you can then move it off using Weavile later on. We don't have much here, but of course, there's an energy attachment for the turn. And if Robin can draw something all right off this Silvally, we're going to have 6 energy on the board, and we've even got that capture energy coming down, which is actually going to be really nice for getting a basic as well.
Yeah, no sweat from Robin. The energies weren't scary. The good news is he drew so many energies, he had very few bad draws there, and he actually got the best of the bunch. Can capture energy out the Mewtwo now by the looks of things. I don't know how many tag teams he actually has in his discard pile, so could be going for a safer route here, in air quotes, with the Sableye, or the Mega Sableye and Tyranitar here of all Pokemon. It has a very hefty attack cost, but he's actually managed to get enough in play to use it here, and it does deal 210 damage, so the perfect amount to take a KO here.
And am I right in thinking it has 280 rather than the usual 270?
Yep, that's
which
also
is
true.
huge. It forces another Inteleon ability to actually get the KO, which can be a pretty big deal. That's 2 stage 2s rather than 1. And we often see, 270, 280, it's pretty big. ADP had 280, or still does when people play it. And just that extra 10 HP can really save some KOs. Looks like Robin here, though, is just going to completely fill up his board, playing that Dedenne, drawing some more cards.
Ooh, he doesn't
get a Weavile, but does get a Pokemon Communication, which is just as good.
Yeah, happy days for Robin. He can go ahead and Communication in the Weavile. He can pay Retreat, then Evolve up and shove 5 energies onto a Mega Sableye Tyranitar here for a big KO.
We said this is what we wanted. We said we wanted a game where Robin's deck could get these big attackers out with all the energy. Although it really did not look like that's what we were going to see, things changed very, very quickly. And now this puts so much pressure on Henry. And to be clear, there is no way 2 Inteleon come out next turn because there's just 2 Sobble on Henry's board, which means Robin knows that this Mega Sableye and Tyranitar GX is going to survive for a turn.
Yeah, this Greedy Crush gonna go wild here, take a KO, and it's really, the Moltres is the only new card that's made this deck work. The reason why these absurd attack costs work is because you can attach for turn, you can go ahead and Moltres and Red and Blue. There's so much burst here, and it actually makes these crazy cards finally come together for a big flourish here as you get to take 2 prize cards. Unfortunately, the additional prize card that you can take with Greedy Crush is not on V Pokemon, it's only GXs, but this still really initiates a really nice race for Robin.
Yeah, this works nicely. And even though, we saw in the previous game, what Henry can do is almost KO and then wait for Inteleon to be on board to take those KOs later. The good point for Robin's deck is that Weavile moving all the energy around means that even if the Pokemon does go down and give up the prizes, you can make sure that energy is safeguarded, move it on to another Pokemon to set up some more ridiculous powerful attacks. And I like it. Robin's playing with those cards we loved as a kid, where all the numbers printed on them are really big, so they must be really good. And now we're seeing it in a top level deck, and it makes me very happy indeed.
Henry's got a tricky situation here. He's got Shady Dealings. Sometimes, because of how important your Inteleons are here for the quick shooting to fix your math, sometimes you just chain the Drizzles, where you just Shady Dealings for a level ball and hope to do the best here. But instead, Henry's not comfortable with his position and how much he needed here. So he's gone for the research straight away, wanted to have the option to have Drizzle the other side of this hand. Doesn't actually find any way to get another Drizzle out. The good news is he can always be attacking here. He has drawn his VMAX. He has that turn attachment, so he's not necessarily got a bad bunch here. He can also quick ball out potentially another Sobble if needs be, but he's slightly limited with his options here. He's got to pretty much settle just for an attack here. Most likely a Max Lance, because you have to deal with this Sableye pretty quickly, I think.
You do, but looking at Robin's hand, he's actually got that Mallow and Lana we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And although it's not going to take it out of Ice Rider Calyrex range, it will absolutely take it out of Inteleon ability range. So I think we're probably going to see a Mallow and Lana next turn, switch to the bench, heal that Pokemon up, and then just feel free to move the energy around wherever you like. Although, does Robin have a better attacker?
No, because, with the board full, he's forced into the Sableye, so he'd have to just, pay Retreat and lose an energy, which isn't ideal. But Henry, he was considering the Ride of the High King, which could get heavily punished by Mallow Lana. Yeah. I don't know how closely Henry's been paying attention to Robin's discard pile in the earlier series, but I'm pretty sure he has caught sight of at least one Mallow Lana that hit the discard pile in that second game. So it's whether or not he respects Robin actually having it in hand here. Looks like he's just going to go for the Ride of the High King.
Oh, this is going to be punished. I mean, you've got to see a Mallow and Lana here. This is going to be...
Yeah, even with the heal, you can still max Lance to KO next turn, so it's not going to be devastating, but like you say, it gives Robin a pretty easy route this turn of what he wants to do. You're definitely going to try and heal up, maybe even just swing with the Moltres, because you know you can't one-hit KO the Ice Rider here, so you just go for a 2-hit KO approach, and then look to have your... Darkrai Umbreon as your finisher sort of deal in the later stages once his board space is freed up by a KO from Henry.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I think that's absolutely the way to go. I love the healing here. Like you say, it is still in the way of a Max Lance. Max Lance will still be able to get the KO, but you can have it on the bench, and also you can force the Max Lance. Max Lance is not really an attack you want to keep using because you've got to keep discarding the energy, and that's just annoying after a while.
Yeah, and the thing is, Melanie isn't boss, so when you force that discard from Henry's side of the field, it means that you know that your bench is safe for a turn, and that's exactly what Robin needs because his deck is so specific. He needs Weavile to oftentimes be online. He needs that Silvally to be online because that's his main means of draw. So forcing the discards is always a good thing for Robin here.
No, I think it's an excellent choice, and it does look like that Galarian Moltres is in the active. It is going to be ready to attack this turn. Like you say, not going to be a one-hit KO, but 190 damage is not insignificant. Working on that 2-hit KO, and as soon as one of these VMAXs goes down, then we can just see a KO on one of those Inteleon line Pokemon, and that will put Robin through to losers round 2, keep him in the tournament, and unfortunately knock Henry out, and that's got to be what Robin's thinking about at this stage. Just 3 more attacks. 2-hit KO this, KO one of the Inteleon line, and just get out of here with a win.
Yeah, and we see he's still holding on to that Viridian Forest, I think continuing to respect Path of the Peak, because Henry's drawn so poorly in the last 2 games that Robin still doesn't know whether or not he has to play around the stadium just yet. So he's just staying on the cautious side, not getting caught off guard. Henry is going to Melanie and does find himself the quick shooting Inteleon, which is a big deal here, as well as level ball. So can take a couple prize cards, can develop at least 1 quick shooting Intel, and can also Drizzle and try and build up some more for future turns. But I still feel like Robin's actually in the driver's seat here. I think the only thing that's a bit of a worry is how many energies are coming out of play from this KO from Henry, because it may keep Robin away from those scary GX attacks.
And that's the thing, you know, if Henry can keep going and keep getting these KOs, it's not just the fact that he's taking prizes, it's getting the energy. KOing this Moltres and then KOing Mega Sableye Tyranitar won't win Henry the game. That's still only 5 prizes. But what it might do, like you say, is take enough energy off the field that Robin is just not able to establish much else. And also, with this Galarian Moltres hitting the discard pile, if Robin wants to use that ability to keep getting more energy onto the board, he's going to have to find a new Galarian Moltres or recover that one from the discard pile.
We are going to see Henry does go ahead and use that Shady Dealings Drizzle to go and establish his next VMAX. He could Air Balloon the active and promote another VMAX here and take the KO. And really just hope that Robin can't establish a Dark Moon GX here as you obviously evolve up into your Inteleon. I don't think there's many great options to use your quick shooting this turn. There's nothing much that you can put in range. Possibly just goes onto the Mega Sableye Tyranitar here just to play around potential like big charms or something like that. He doesn't actually have many good options here, Henry, as most things fall in range of the Max Lance already. If you put the damage on the active, it means you can actually use Ride of the High King here, which is probably the smartest move possible. You keep the board full, so that means that you're guaranteeing a way that Robin can't use the scary GX attack that Darkrai Umbreon possesses.
Yeah, I love this. I think this is a fantastic way to do it. Leave it with 10 HP remaining. Yes, fine, all right, you're not getting a KO this turn, but you get a KO next turn, you get those glorious midterm prizes, you're keeping Robin's board full for a little while. You're going to get the KO anyway, and also you're not particularly scared of Galarian Moltres. It doesn't do that much damage, so Robin here is still, without a boss's orders, still 3 attacks away from winning the game. So I love what Henry's done here. I think this is a really heads-up play, and it's just those options you get with Inteleon. Robin is playing a quick ball here, which is nice, but any Pokemon you find is essentially going to have to be put in a discard pile or saved for the future. Nothing's coming down this turn.
Well, I think Robin is just digging towards his second Malolana. I think that's the scariest thing. Robin actually has 5 outs to hit this. He has all 4 Tag Call, and then he also has the Malolana itself. So the 5 cards from the Silvally hit is going to be pretty big. You have to think that he's grabbing this Greninja Zoroark just to discard with the Viridian, because you want to maximize your outs here, because you can really punish Henry again for trying to get cute with his damage counters.
Yeah, and we've talked about the upsides a lot of leaving Pokemon just out of range of being KO'd, or just in range, sorry. But now we see the downside of leaving them, and we do see a Tag Call. So there is going to be a Mallow and Lana here, like you said, Joe. And again, that's not... Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX will still get a KO pretty easily, but Inteleon won't. And this is a second time that this has potentially happened in this game. And you got to be thinking, with your Henry here, are you regretting these decisions? Are you thinking, maybe I should just, even though it's costing me some energy and opening some options up for Robin, should I just be taking these KOs when I've got the chance? Because the game could almost be over at this stage.
Yeah, he was playing around one thing, which meant that he fell into the other trap that Robin was laying, unfortunately. You can't question why Henry was going for it, especially because you don't even expect 2 Malolana in this deck list, to be honest. I don't know how good of a knowledge Henry even has on this list whatsoever. It's kind of a rogue variant regardless, so you're learning as you go here. You don't really know exactly what is in Robin's deck, and falling prey to that second Malolana is a bit of a head slap moment, really, where you think, oh man, how's he found space for a second copy in a deck that plays 1 research? It's quite a bizarre thing to see, but it's really paid off for Robin this turn.
Yeah, I've lost to that back when Ace Roller was a thing. I was playing against a deck that only ever played 1 Ace Roller, and I played around it, and they dropped the second Ace Roller, and that's literally what lost me the game. We've all been there. Robin here, he's got a lot of energy on the board. There are 8 energy on the board, which is absolutely huge. Opens up a lot of options. I mean, Henry still in this, still very much in the game, but Robin's got 4 prizes left to take, and it's options at this stage. Also, when you say you don't expect Robin to be playing a second Mallow and Lana, what do you expect from Robin's deck? Like, when your Henry is sitting opposite this, what expectations do you even have?
A second draw supporter, maybe?
Okay, I'll give you that one.
I would hope. But here we go. Robin committing 5 energy to his active here. And I think he's just ahead in a race at this stage. He can just put more damage into play. That leaves both of Henry's Ice Riders heavily damaged. So Robin won't even need to piece together Boss's orders. Henry's current only valid attackers all are, in range of many attacks at this stage. So from Henry's perspective, what can you do to stop the flow here? You can take a 3-prize knockout, but he doesn't play anything like Reset Stamp. He's playing an aggressive build here, where he just tries to race efficiently with quick shooting. And at the moment, Robin's just that little bit ahead.
Yeah, those 2 Mallow and Lanas have been absolutely brutal. They really have been the difference in this game. And we do see a Marnie coming down, but that's actually going to give Robin more cards in hand than he had previously. Although his hand was, to be fair, looking good, he actually had a draw supporter. But there's no second free prize Pokemon on Robin's side of the board right now. So when Henry takes his KO, he goes down to 3 prizes remaining. That's still 2 KOs. And if Robin can attack twice, once into each of those Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, that's the game. And if he doesn't, what's Henry attacking with? I mean, does he start maybe attacking with Inteleon? Because that is not what his deck is built to do.
No, and it doesn't even help the prize race, because it's going to be 3-1, just even easier for Robin, really.
Yeah,
it's just an unfortunate situation. Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation where he'd already got rid of another Ice Rider, so he certainly would have used the Quick Ball earlier in the turn to establish another one and at least force Boss from Robin in the upcoming turns, but the option's just not available to him. The 2 damaged Ice Riders are basically the only Pokemon he can use in the first place, so Henry's really just hoping that he can still churn out some damage here, and removing enough energy from play will be his win condition.
Absolutely, and we saw that Henry knew that when he attached the 3rd energy to the active VMAX, that was a dead giveaway, that there was absolutely no chance of another attacker coming down, because if there was, that's where the energy would have gone. Robin here, he's lost his big free prize Pokemon, but he is in this stage now where it's 2 attacks. 2 attacks will win the game. It really is as simple as that. He's got 4 energy on the Galarian Moltres. That's 1 more than he needs. So at this stage, it's just, can he get and keep enough energy in play so that he can get 2 attacks off? Because Henry's not going to struggle to get a return KO here. That's not a problem. The problem is going to be that if Robin has a second attacker, that's game.
Yeah, and the only real issue for Robin is that he has no more energy to actually attach here. So he needs to find a way of buying an extra turn for Direflame Wings, realistically, if he's going to get the job done here, because you're sacrificing more energy this turn by attacking, and it may just be a little bit too much for him. He's actually not out of the woods yet because of just how expensive the Sabletar's attack was in that last turn.
And let's not forget the beginning of the game when Robin drew into all of those energies. There were a couple that, I believe, that hit the discard pile which didn't come back. Or even if they did, they came back with Direflame Wings. So I think that, those kind of hilarious hands of energy at the beginning of the game that he got out of it with red and blue, that was brilliant. But there were energy hitting the discard that then weren't being attached. So that is potentially a problem.
We'll see how Robin wants to go about his turn. He's trying to thin his hand for the Sylvalai here to draw a few additional cards to see if he can get himself into a slightly less precarious situation, I think. He's certainly taking his time on it because this is a crucial turn. Tackle doesn't give him too many options here. I think he's used all of his tackle supporters already. So I'm not sure what else he can conjure up here.
Well, if there's an energy in the prizes, this works quite nicely, because Galarian Moltres needs free energy, so you can move one off. You've got Galarian Moltres in your hand already, so next turn you can bench that, use the ability, there's 2 energy. You need free, and you're taking free prize cards. So and I don't know if there is, I've not been counting the energy, I'm going to be honest about that, but if there is an energy in the prizes, that will be the 3rd energy for Robin. He attaches that for turn, and that will be game. But are there energy in the discard? Because that, for me, is the big question. If there is an energy in the prizes and Robin can find it, I'm pretty sure that's game. If there isn't, then I'm like you. He needs to buy a turn.
Yeah, I think you're right as well. I think he has only seen 9 energy. I say in air quotes only. There's the capture energy that he's used, and there's 5 that went off the Mega Sableye Tyranitar. So I think there's 1 in there in the prizes. And let's see what else. Yeah, there's certainly no energy in the deck, so that's no option for him.
No.
Looks like he's still just trying to... it's a strange one. Yeah, you're right. He may just be looking for energy off prizes at this point to see himself over the line.
And that would pretty much guarantee the win.
So close. Yeah. He has got so close. He hasn't played a supporter. That would be another way to win here, where you just use Sylvalai to attack with Brave Buddies, but it's not enough damage, unfortunately, when you haven't played a supporter this turn.
Is he going to use the GX attack on Weavile? No.
I'm not too sure what's going on here. He seems to be just going for the Weavile's regular attack here and just says that Claw Slash gets the KO, and then you just have the Direflame Wings, and the turn attachment from the prize cards is his win condition, I imagine.
He's got a Weavile in hand, so that's going to be fine. There's a Guzma and Hala, that's not it. That's a Weavile GX, that's not it. That's a Pokemon Communication, that's not it. I don't think he's got enough energy to win this game now.
Oh, it's heartbreaking for Robin. The 25%? No, not like this. So calculated as well. Oh my goodness. But when you're sat from Henry's side of the board, you are terrified right now. Oh, Henry has to think that he's close to losing. The only thing that gives you some comfort is that Robin took a long time with his turn. That's the only bit of comfort that you can draw from all this, because you are otherwise terrified.
Yeah, it's not good. Now, Robin doesn't even have an ordinary rod or anything left, does he?
So Henry, I think he might be so afraid here that he might be using Cobalion, which would actually give Robin the Direflame Wings turn that he needs here. You can see exactly why Henry's doing this. This is completely correct from his side of the board. But it's just, it gives Robin an extra energy to play with here.
This is probably going to give Robin the win. Henry Cobalion.
Yeah, he can double quick shooting the Moltres and try and get that a little bit closer. And from Henry's point of view, this is completely correct, by the way. There's no way you'd play towards the 25% that Robin doesn't have energy at this stage.
No, know, you've got to think, right? Bearing in mind, like we say, this is a closed deck list tournament. This isn't like the previous Players' Cup. Henry doesn't know how much energy Robin's playing, and like we keep saying, Robin is, sometimes you're playing against a deck where you're like, oh, they're playing Zach Lesage's Pikachu, and Zekrom build it plays X amount of energy. But here, Robin must be sighing a huge sigh of relief, because now we've got 2 turns of Dire Flame Rings, which is going to give the energy, and actually a boss's orders, I mean, it won't give the win now, but there's a boss's orders in hand. There's gonna be free energy on the board next turn. You could even maybe get the Weavile out the active, put a Dedenne up, try and, if you've got, I don't know if he's got a switching card to do that though, that would lose an energy. Oh no, but it would save energy, so maybe even go to the bench and, you know, just feed a Dedenne up there and save even more energy. Like you say, I think that Cobalion, I think that's given Robin the win here. Unless Henry can pull something out, but there's no free prize Pokemon. Henry cannot win the game next turn unless he KOs that Moltres.
So the Moltres has just a little bit too many hit points. Oh, he'd have to find the 3rd Intel. That would be his line. If he finds the 3rd quick shooting Inteleon, that's how Henry gets there. Robin's doing the completely correct thing here. He's spreading his energy completely. He has double Weavile established, so he knows that he'll always have the ability online for next turn to move it on to whatever else he likes. So really, Robin can just sit and wait and see if Henry can get that last Inteleon. He's actually holding on to Scoop Up Net, so he can do a triple quick shooting next turn.
Oh, so he's actually
so the Cobalion actually is going to get him there.
Yeah, I thought Cobalion had given the game to Robin, and it looked like he had, but you're absolutely right. That Scoop Up Net, you know, will give that ability the 3rd time. That Drizzle on the bench can be evolved, and I think you're right. I think we're going to see the triple quick shooting onto Galarian Moltres. That'll get the KO, attack into whatever's in the active, and I think... I know like 30 seconds ago I was convinced Robin was going to win, but I think I might be changing my mind here, Joe.
Well, Robin couldn't win if Henry had actually just used Max Lance, but Henry did the completely correct thing, which is actually playing around Robin being able to launch an attack the following turn. But now Henry does just have game on board. He can go for 2 quick shootings. He can Scoop Up Net, one of the ones that's just used the ability, evolve up, retreat into his Ice Rider, and that will be a really tense series, but Henry just about hangs on in the loser's bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, Henry's just kind of giving a good game or whatever in the chat there. We see that KO on the Galarian Moltres, picking up 2 prizes. It does not even matter a tiny little bit what they are. All Henry needs to do here is click Max Lance, discard the energy, do the damage, KO the Weavile, and for the 2nd game in a row, Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX will be carrying on through the loser's bracket. That really could have gone either way to the end. That was a very tense ending, and I enjoyed that game. That was fun.
That was a nail-biter, and man, that was pretty intricate as well from both players, and Robin's deck, when even it gets so well set up and you're still not winning the game, you can really see that Robin is giving himself the challenge while playing this list. You can see why this is on the rogue side of things rather than the highly competitive. I know there are some big reasons to be playing this dark archetype alongside having the Mewtwo for 2 really integral type coverages in the game, hoping to beat the Shadow Rider Calyrex and the Rapid Strike Urshifu, but when you come up against the general field, oftentimes your deck can fizzle that little bit. You're a little bit clunkier than most, and even where we had the dream scenario, you know, the Greedy Crush turn 2 for the 2 prize knockout, you're still not getting it done because of an early Dene change, got rid of 1 too many energies. Oh, it's heartbreak for him.
Absolutely, and it's weirdly similar, right? We've seen 2 games, both in the loser's bracket, both victories by Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, both matchups against decks which were really looking to counter the metagame and take advantage of good matchups, but neither of those decks had really